Hello and welcome to Ditch Witch Diaries. We are back talking about our poisons. And Raven is gonna kick us off.
All right. So we are doing the Bleeding Heart today.
Ooh.
So yes, it's so pretty.
Ooh,
It's
I
like,
love that.
isn't it nice? It's like
Oh my.
so feminine and
Oh,
um yeah, we'll talk about it's like feminine in like the beautiful yet deadly way, like Lily of the Valley.
yes, it is.
Okay.
You love those too. That's the
Yes, me too.
best.
The little fairy hats. Okay, so bleeding heart. Family is actually the poppy family, the Papaveraceae. The genus is Lamprocapnos, and that's the species, right? So oh, that whole thing. However, it used to be in the Dicentra genus. So it used to be called the Dicentra spectabilis. But
Spectabilis.
that's, say it again.
Spectabilis?
Spectabilis. I like that. That sounds spectacular. So, it used to be part of that family, so you can still see this in like old books and things like that, but this is the current taxonomy. So there's two other ones which we'll talk more about later, but we have the Formosa and the Eximia, which is the Pacific bleeding heart and the Fringed bleeding heart. These with our this bleeding heart. They're the same family but different genus, but they used to all so we have like the this one, right? The Dicentra. And so they used to be all together in the same genus, but then, we continue observing and testing and things. And so the botanists realized that it's different, and so they put it in its own genus. So other names we have bleeding heart, old-fashioned bleeding heart, common bleeding heart, Asian bleeding heart, garden bleeding heart, lyre flower, lady in a bath, which we'll discuss later, lady's locket, and Dutchman's trousers.
Those are great names.
Yeah, I love the names. So the height is 24 to 36 inches on average. It can get up to 48, but it's a pretty small shrub. The spread is 24 to 36 inches. The leaves are separated. They look um okay, hold on. Let me not get ahead of myself. So they can be like blue green to gray green. So this looks so green just because it's in like really bright light, but they're not usually that vibrant green. They're really delicate, and based on descriptions and pictures, they look almost like clover leaves. Not the shape, but like the texture, like really thin. And then we have like divided into these like leaflets. And then we have the flowers. So they bloom in mid to late spring. They're about an inch long, so pretty short. If you're not aware, the first knuckle of your index finger is about an inch, so that's about how big the hearts are. So little babies. And they hang in like one-sided rows along these arching stems, so you'll never see like them on opposite sides. They're always gonna grow on like one side, which is usually like the underside. Um, there's two outer pink or white heart-shaped petals. So we have this one, and then on the back is the other one. And it's like symmetrical and pendant, which just means that it hangs. So native to northeastern China and the Korean Peninsula, a very small area that they are native to. They're kind of specific with their habitat preference. So they like moist woodland edges. They like shaded mountain slopes. So like they can grow on a mountain, but it has to be shaded and like moist. They need a lot of moisture. Also, hummus, which I had never heard of before, which is just decayed plant and animal matter that you would find in like really nutrient-rich like forest floors. I didn't know that that was the term for that. I love that. Separate from the dip, which is spelled with two M's. So rich humus-filled forest soils. They like a little bit of light, not a lot. The soil needs to be well draining, which is why they like floors that are kind of built up with like decayed matter and stuff because it kind of lets air come through and lets the water not just sit. And they need constant moisture. You cannot let the roots dry out, which is very similar to ferns. Like ferns, you have to always keep moist.
Interesting.
We have two lookalikes, which are the two that we discussed earlier that were in the other genus. So we have the Fringed bleeding heart. Looks a little similar, but it's smaller, and the flowers are also like more narrow and they're darker. And then we have the Pacific bleeding heart, which kind of looks like our bleeding heart, except the petals are wider and longer, and that it doesn't have the white like drop at the end. It has like this kind of greenish looking one. Okay, so let's talk about some history and lore. So in China, it's referred to as the embroidered pouch peony. And so the story is a young woman waited faithfully for her beloved to return. Each month, she embroidered another silk pouch while she longed for him. She hung the finished pouches on a peony branch outside of her window, and in time, the branch seemed to bloom with these dangling pink pouches giving rise to the flower's name. So that's the peony pouch. And I just put a little picture of a peony just in case you don't know what that looks like. Peonies are like the number one most common flower tattooed now. They're like everywhere.
I did not
They're
know
oh my gosh, and I mean they're beautiful and the tattoos are beautiful, but it's like everywhere. Like that's like like this generation's tattoo thing is
that.
like
Ah, a
peonies.
peony. Okay.
Um, so it's associated with faithful love, longing, patience, things like that. And then in Korea, it's called the Brocade pouch flower, which I had seen this material before. I didn't know that that's the name for it, but that's like it's where it's woven, shuttle woven fabric that has like raised, really intricate patterns on them like this. And so in Korea, the flower is called the Brocade pouch flower. So gardening books, websites, all of these things in modern Korea talk about different stories, and they're all very different, but they're all about a maiden like waiting for her love.
Hmm.
And so traditional, um, oh, and the reason I don't have a picture of the flower on here, but they call it this because it looks like, um, the flower looks like a pouch made from this type of fabric.
Oh,
So or let's see, symbolism focuses on love, affection, following your beloved, good fortune because of the pouch, and pouches traditionally hold like jewelry or money or anything that's worth value. And so it's also kind of associated with that. And then we have in Japan, there's a few different names, but one of them is the translated into sea bream fishing plant. So people looked at the flower and thought that it resembled the sea breams like being hanging on a fishing line. This is a sea bream if you don't know. There's different kinds, but this is what it looks like. And so they say that this like tip part of the heart looks like its tail.
okay.
Kind of. Yeah, I guess maybe a little bit.
Yeah. But I guess if you're like hanging them all like on a like a thing, that would maybe yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It like the line would like bend
Mhm.
over and they would,
Yeah.
be ordered. Yeah. Um, and then we also have another name which refers to the kemen, which is like this ornate thing that hangs from Buddhist temples. So, but I would imagine this part probably specifically. So. And then we have the Lady in the Bath. Okay, so one of the names we said was Lady in the Bath. Now, this comes from Victorian flower folklore. Victorian women would pull apart the flower to reveal little tiny shapes inside. And so some of the commonly found shapes were a lady sitting in a bathtub, two pink hearts, obviously two drops of blood, tiny earrings, a lyre, or like a harp. So what does the inside of this flower look like for it to look like a lady sitting in a bathtub? Well, this is what it looks like. So you
Oh
would cut
wow.
off this part, right? Because this is one petal, the second petal's on the back. So you kind of like remove the petal and then remove all of the petals. And then you like lift up this back part of it. And this is the final product, which looks like a lady sitting in a bath. And
Yeah.
my question is, I don't see that at all. What do you mean a lady sitting in a bath? And so this is a graphic representation where I guess like this is the head, the
Yeah.
arms, the side of the bathtub, and then like the knees popping out of the bath.
Okay.
I
Okay.
guess.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I get maybe a little, but I'm not that imaginative, I
Okay,
think.
let me just tell you that there's like something altogether like vulvular about that.
Yes, yes, it definitely is. It definitely is.
There's definitely something altogether like
Yeah.
labial. That's more.
Yes, very labial. Yeah, even like clitoral hood
Yes,
potentially,
I
you know,
know. That's
like
what I'm saying. Like there's like a lot going on there.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Which ties back to the femininity, I
Yes.
suppose.
Yes.
Yes, it's a interesting flower to say the least.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have the history of the broken heart. So the each flower resembles a heart that's split open with a white dropping. I should have put a picture, but we have in case you've forgotten. Oh, here we go. The like white drop, right? So we
Mhm.
have the heart, and then it looks like it's split open, and then this
Yes.
droplet coming
Yes.
out. So the plant has become associated with things like lost love, mourning, grief, because the heart is split open. And it would be in Victorian like flower language, it's things like deep and lasting compassion, my heart bleeds for you, whether romantically or empathetically or something, you know. So another just kind of tidbit of information. Bleeding heart flowers have evolved to be pollinated by long-tongued bees, especially like bumblebees. Not all bees are long-tongued, but bumblebees are. And so, because they can't not all pollinators can get so deep into the flower. You can't really
Yeah.
get in, right? So you have to be able to reach it somehow.
Yeah.
And so, this is associated with like only those that approach it gently receive its gifts. So modernly it's mostly used for like ornamental stuff, so ornamental garden plant, botanical illustration. So because it's perfectly symmetrical and the inside is so detailed, it's really commonly used for botanical illustrations, landscaping, memorial gardens, which makes sense because of the heart, and like pollinator gardens.
Nice.
Okay, so we are not physicians. This is called poisons. Don't consume it, all that good stuff. Okay, don't
Wait,
don't
don't
eat
risk
it.
it for the biscuit.
Don't risk it for any biscuit. So actions, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antimicrobial, and a cytotoxic, which is like anti-cancer. So not a lot of actions, but some good ones. So the active compounds are isoquinoline alkaloids, and there's a lot. And these are also associated with the poppy family because it's the same family, right? Different genus, but same family. So a lot of our famous medicines come from this family, right? Morphine, like all kinds of stuff, codeine, come from this family. Um, We'll talk about how it's not actually really used that often, but a lot of things come from this family. Now, there's a lot of alkaloids. I'm not going to even attempt to read these, but these are big ones. And the protopine is one of like the major ones that we know is like I mean, they're all harmful, but these ones are really harmful. And then we also have this one,
Sanguinary.
sanguinarine, which is intense. Okay, damages cell membranes, disrupts mitochondrial function, interferes with normal cell death pathways, all kinds of stuff. It kills cells, which is why it's studied for anti-cancer, and the plant is used for like potential anti-cancer research. But again, it's handled in a very specific way, in a very specific amount, administered in a very specific way. Okay. Now, where are they found? Everywhere. The whole plant, especially the roots. The roots are the most toxic, but all of it is toxic. How much, as with most plants we see, it varies, right? It varies depending on the age of the plant, the growing conditions, the season, all kinds of things. So serious poisonings are pretty uncommon. There are some cases of them, but they're uncommon because the plant apparently tastes terrible. Super, super, super bitter.
That's lovely when poisons like go
Yes.
along with terrible taste because it
Ye-
kind of don't touch me.
Yeah, that's like most people do not enjoy bitter taste because it's an evolutionary advantage, right? Most things that are poisonous or like toxic in some way taste bitter, and so we've evolved to not like bitter. So if something tastes bitter, be careful.
Spit it out.
Be careful. So, most of the human poisonings involve like children, but there are instances of like pets. Some people do mistake the leaves for edible greens. It's mostly children though. Symptoms: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, intense abdominal pain, dizziness, confusion, all of the very typical terrible things. Now, even though it belongs to the same family as poppies, which we get all of these other drugs from, like medical drugs, it's not really ever been used historically in this medicinal way. So there's little evidence that it is really widely used ever medicinally. In China, which is where it's native, it's not really talked about medicinally at all. In fact, it's not really talked about other than kind of like spiritually or like ornamentally. So never appears in TCM, doesn't appear in any Materia Medica, nothing like that. In Korea, there's a few just like scatterings of like folk practices, usually using a very, very small amount and applied topically. But even then, very rarely discussed. And in Europe, it's never been consumed at all. It's just been used like as decoration. Okay, so magical stuff. So element, water, compassion, grief, woodland moisture, even looks like a drop is coming out of the heart, which could be associated with water. Sign, all of these, I found very little information. I found at least one place that talked about all of these. But not very common. So sign is Cancer, like emotional depth, home, memory, devotion, things like that. And I found one other place that said Pisces, associated with like transcendence. The planet is Moon, or Venus because of like the romance beauty aspect. I get that. I like Venus for that. Tarot is Three of Swords, which was interesting, I think. I only found one place that talked about the tarot. And the last one we did, Oleander, I think I said it felt like the Three of Swords, and now we have the Three of Swords coming up again, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. But revealing the truth, breaking false images, again, just like the Oleander plant, it looks very like soft and delicate and like loving, and then it will kill you. So
It is not, alas.
Um, so breaking those false images, right? Because she's not delicate
Mhm.
and so breaking that. And then chakra, I found heart, but I think solar plexus could also be that way too. I don't know exactly why. So, I don't know, something about like being your true self kind of comes out and like allowing yourself to be like expressed in the way that you want to express yourself, not like in a throat chakra way, but in like an identity sort of way, you know? So I don't know. I like solar plexus, but heart makes sense. So deities and beings, again, indirectly, nothing directly associated with it, but I found Kuan Yin, who is associated with like compassion. We have Oshun, who's like tenderness, beauty, life-giving. Aphrodite, I don't have a picture of her, but we all know she's beautiful. Different woodland spirits, fairies, elves, things like that. And then in Korea and Chinese culture, we have some nature spirits. So we have the Senshin, which is this mountain spirit. And then we have the Xian, which is like a woodland immortal or a group of woodland immortals. So something I think is interesting, even though it's called the Bleeding Heart, and in Victorian era, we talked about it as like love, but love that has suffered. But I don't like the association of like just like like a soft kind of like weepy somebody laying on the floor crying type of bleeding heart. I kind of like it with like empathy, compassion, like still expressing and feeling love even though there's some pain associated with it, which I see as strength, right? It's like the bleeding heart, but in the way that you are like strong in spite of the bleeding heart. Um, and then I also, even stepping away from this concept of like heart, really, don't forget that in China and Korea, it's associated with like silk purses and pouches and things that hold important value to you. So it's not even really about the heart. It's like the container of something that you want to keep close to you, right? You want to put a pouch on your wrist. That's the whole reason you have the pouch is to keep it on you. So we could look at it as things like that, like beauty, good fortune, possessions. You could also think of it as just like tying a little bit back to the Victorian meaning, but a heart that's open, your heart being open, not like crushed and cracked, but you have opened your heart up. So I don't know, when I first was started learning about this plant, I was thinking that it was like sadness and kind of like mopey, but I think that it's the strength associated with allowing your heart to be open.
I love that.
Yeah. So, keeping in mind all of that stuff, how could you use it? You could have a heart healing altar or like put it on your altar for healing grief, for giving yourself forgiveness, moving through, having the strength to move through something like heartbreak or even like some type of grief within you. Meditating on the white tear beneath the heart, right? So, like, what pain is becoming compassion? You could have a compassion candle. So dedicate a candle to someone who's suffering to show them compassion and empathy, including yourself if wanted. Self-forgiveness ritual. So reflect on things like my vulnerability is not my weakness. It could be your strength. Shadow work journal. So things like what grief still deserves compassion? What part of me needs gentleness? Where have I confused vulnerability with weakness? Things like that. Or a letter ritual. I love letter rituals. So like writing a letter to someone, your younger self, your older self, somebody who used to be in your life and is no longer in your life. Put it beneath the bleeding heart to kind of like open up that your heart for that person and that conversation, and then bury it, burn it, whatever you want to do with that letter.
I love that.
And that's it. That's our bleeding heart.
I love that. Thank you so much. That was great. And it is such a beautiful flower and plant.
Yes, so pretty. Yeah.
So excellent. Like and subscribe below, and we will see you at the next Ditch Witch Diaries.